Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Perucci, Assistant Director at the UN Statistics Division, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar today on reflections from the 2021 UN World Data Forum, the evolving data ecosystem, and the role of national statistical offices. After the third UN World Data Forum that we had in Bern in Switzerland in early October, we are now resuming our regular series of UN World Data Forum webinars to continue the conversation on improving data for development with our wide community of data actors. This webinar is actually the 24th, a long series, hosted by the UN Statistics Division. The series started in 2017 after we held the first UN World Data Forum in Cape Town, South Africa. The World Forum aims to foster cooperation and an open dialogue among data experts and users in governments, civil society, private sector, other groups to spur data innovation, mobilize high-level political and financial support for data, and also chart a pathway to better data for sustainable development. And it's in Cape Town that this community launched the first global action plan, what we refer to the Cape Town Global Action Plan, which has been the framework that over the last few years has guided the capacity building work that is needed in order to have the data for the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And as we've seen in Bern in October, our community continues to evolve and to show its diversity, dynamism, dedication to find data solutions that can better support the realization of the 2030 Agenda. And the response to the COVID-19 pandemic has even accelerated that evolution. We must take stock and reflect on these increasing and rapidly changing needs of both data users and producers. That is why the high-level group for partnership, coordination, and capacity building for data for the 2030 Agenda, which is the group that led the preparation of the first Global Action Plan, has launched a review of the plan so that the new, revised, updated version will better reflect the needs and priorities for action. In that context, the Partnership for Statistics for Development in the 21st century, Paris 21, the World Bank Development Data Group, and the UN Statistics Division, in August this year, undertook a survey on the implementation of the Cape Town Global Action Plan. To help identify, understanding these new priorities, including those resulting from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also help update and revitalize the Cape Town Global Action Plan. So this webinar we're hosting today is a contribution to the conversation on the review and update of the Cape Town Global Action Plan so that it can better reflect the needs of countries and as they continue to strengthen and modernize their data and statistical systems. And now, without further ado, over to our great panel. I'm pleased to introduce Grant Cameron, Executive Director of SDSN Trends. Grant, the mic is yours.
Thanks very much, Francesca, and welcome to everyone to this webinar. It's great that this sort of webinar series is now continuing after the successful Bern World Data Forum. As Francesca mentioned, my name is Grant Cameron, and I'm the moderator for this webinar and the director of SDSN Trends, a global research network with a focus on connecting innovators across data domains to improve data production and use for sustainable development. For those of you who attended the closing session of the Bern World Data Forum, you heard the UN Deputy Secretary General say that the data revolution was coming to life. Data was now recognized broadly as a strategic asset, and that different communities were coming together out of their silos to work to generate the data we need. She also recognized that many challenges remain to be overcome to advance the data revolution. Her thoughts are captured nicely in the Bern Data Compact for the Decade of Action on the SDGs, a call to action released at the end of the forum, which you can review online. It's been 2 months since the forum concluded, and a good time to begin to assess the forum messages as we still carry the energy from the forum but are now back to the day-to-day work of delivering statistical products and services. And so we will begin this assessment and reflection today at this webinar, which is entitled Reflections from the 2021 UN World Data Forum, the Evolving Data Ecosystem and the Role of National Statistical Offices. We will hear from 4 speakers. The first will provide a global perspective on and help frame our reflections. And then the other 3 will provide country perspectives. We will hear from them in turn, and each will have about 7 minutes to provide their views. And then for the remaining part of the time allotted to us in this webinar, we'll have a question and answer period. And thanks to those of you who've already posted questions in advance, and we'll be mining those questions as we move to the Q&A session. Before we dive in, of course, there's always a few housekeeping notes. The first and foremost one is I think we always want to tailor these webinars to the community that's tuning in live. So I'd invite you to find the chat function box or icon on your webinar screen. It's a sort of, it looks like a little speech bubble. It's at the lower right-hand side of the app that you've probably launched. And we want you to type in 2 words. 1, the country you're joining from, and 2, the type of institution in which you work. Are you in a statistical office, a private sector entity, international organization, or a civil society organization? We're going to be using this chat function to communicate through the webinar, so it's good to get a handle on how to use it now. And as I mentioned earlier, we received a large number of questions that have shaped the conversation today, and we've picked a few that will circulate back to the panelists a bit later. So yeah, let's take a quick look before I move to the next one to see we've got folks. It's always nice to see we've got people sort of represented from around the world and from a range of different institutions. So that's great to see this happening. And yeah, I can't read as fast as the chat is going, but we're capturing this information, and it'll give us a chance to review how to maybe shape the discussion as we move ahead. So thanks very much for using the chat box. Seems to be working well. Okay, so now we turn it over to the panelists, and to start us off, I'm just going to be introducing each of our panelists as they're about to present. You know, the first one, as I mentioned, is going to give us a sort of a global perspective, and will give us some findings associated with the survey that Francesca mentioned at the top of the session. And we're going to first hear from Alberto Zezza, and he's with the Data Development Group at the World Bank, where he's the program manager of the Center for Development Data based in Rome. He's part of a team that's designed and implemented the survey of national statistical offices during COVID-19. I think all of us have sort of been watching the trends that have been captured in that survey, and the subsequent survey of the implementation of the Cape Town Global Action Plan. So I'm now turning over to Alberto for the next 7 minutes to give us the findings from his survey. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Grant, and thank you, Francesca, and the World Data Forum organizer for the invitation, and thank you all for joining. Good morning, good afternoon. So today I've been invited to present preliminary results from a survey on the implementation of the CTGAP, which we conducted with the UNSD and Paris 21 over the summer, as Francesca said. And it is fitting that the first presentation of this result, which is today, is delivered to an audience which is mostly of NSO managers and leaders. As the intention in undertaking that survey was exactly to understand better the needs of NSOs and inform a coordinated international action. Next slide, please. So to start, let me quickly take a step back. So since the CTGAP was launched officially in 2017, I mean, one major thing happened, and I don't need to tell you what it was, of course. I mean, it was COVID. So the pandemic disrupted pretty much everything in our private, professional, institutional lives. And that is why they put like a blank space in that first line. You can fill it with the word or phrase of your choice. Everything got disrupted. So While the international statistical community with the CTGAP was trying to focus on medium and long-term capacity issues, and of course, capacity is obviously something that requires long-term efforts, then COVID happened, which forced everyone to actually focus on the immediate, on the short-term responses. At the same time, it didn't take long before we started realizing that COVID was not only kind of a bump in the road, or albeit a big one in many ways, but also something that was accelerating in many ways the data revolution that was in the making. So it did stop many things, but it also accelerated many others, such as our ability to work remotely, the adoption in many NSOs of innovative means of data collection, data dissemination, and use. So the CTGAP survey aims in a way to harness this consideration, help us as a community to regroup and refocus the discussion more on the longer term goals, but at the same time realizing that we're now in a world that is very different from what it was before COVID, what it looked like in 2017. Next slide, please. So the CTGAP, as Grant says, was launched on the heels of this COVID survey of NSOs. And you see the report, the covers of the report there. And the survey was conducted in August, September, with response rates of just over 50%, with 101 responses received. It was structured in two pillars, a questionnaire on capacity building and financing, and the latter part was only asked to IDA eligible countries. So the report is not out yet. It will come out before the end of the month, hopefully in a couple of weeks, and I put like a preview of what the cover will probably look like. There is a question mark because we're still working on it. Next slide, please. Now, let me quickly, next one, please, go to some of the highlights of the results just to get the discussion going. So in 7 minutes, which are now maybe 3 or 4, I cannot give you more than a sneak peek into some of the results and messages. So one major area of the CTGAP and for the survey is, of course, that of resource constraints that NSOs face in their operation. And the message that comes out of the survey is a stark one. 92% of NSOs in low-income countries report facing financial issues. And of these, 49% report these issues to be severe. And 30% have severe IT infrastructure issues. So the picture is still one of many problems. Next slide, please. Besides resources, CTGAP also focuses on coordination, leadership, and modernizations, which are the first two strategic areas of focus. And here, one can look at the results from the survey in two ways. On the one end, 70% of respondents say that things have been improving. So one can interpret that as there being a positive trend. On the other hand, only a minority of respondents see the situation of being satisfactory. More worrying even is the fact that there is a stark divide between high-income and low-income countries. In the low-income ones, only 6% see the coordination capacity of the NSO as satisfactory, against 43% in high-income countries. Next slide, please. Now, one area where also the COVID survey of NSOs had brought our attention to some severe issues for the NSOs is that of ICT readiness. The CTGAP survey revisited this aspect and confirmed some of the findings of those NSOs. So what is especially worrying now is that the risk that these issues with ICT readiness are going to exacerbate a digital divide along income lines across country groups. So in general, in the entire sample, around 45% of NSOs signal that there are issues with staff internet access from home, with cloud computing, with secure remote data access. And in the chart, you can see how focusing on adequate access from home and ICT facilities for numerator trainings, the histograms look very different between high-income and low-income countries again. The high-income countries mostly green, the low-income countries is mostly orange and red, which signals that the gap. Next slide, please. So, okay, in terms of the statistical programs that are seen as priority, the use of administrative data comes out first, followed by surveys and geospatial information. So the survey is also looking into these dimensions. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is a slide I won't have much time to go into, but it's just to show you that besides the resource gaps, the survey also looks into areas that are more the additional areas where the CTGAP focuses, like partnerships and data stewardship. And there are interesting results that are going to emerge in terms of differences across country. This one slide looks in particular at the differences in media usage for the education of users of statistical products. Next slide, please. Next one. Now, moving to the funding, which is a second pillar. Just a couple of slides to give you a flavor. One result that emerges clearly is that still among IDA countries, there is quite a heavy dependence on support from developing partners. So 59% mentioned receiving budget support, and of these, the percent, over half mentioned this support as being greater than 10%, and about a quarter mentioned it being higher than 25% of the total NSO budget. And then there are also interesting priorities in terms of thematic areas where NSO thinks that they're going to have to invest more. And health comes out of top, which of course is something where we can also obviously see the impact of the pandemic. Next slide, please. But besides the funding availability, then there is also an issue of funding predictability and timeliness. There is quite a few countries that report also having delays in the way the budget is delivered, which affects operations. Next slide, please. So to conclude, on behalf of the team that implemented the survey, I wanted to emphasize that we appreciate the engagement of the NSOs that have responded. And we realize, of course, the survey is not a substitute to the in-depth assessment or the dialogue that needs to happen, but it does offer some pointers to help us focus the discussion on shared priorities. Now, going forward, we want to engage more actively with the NSOs in the design of the survey in the future, and probably there's going to be some dialogue around this at the UN Statistical Commission. So I encourage you to participate in that conversation, and also, of course, stay tuned for the release of the survey in about 2 weeks for many more results. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alberto. That's a great presentation and a really great overview, and a really nice way to frame the challenges and the successes so far that I think statistical offices are experiencing. And it does sort of paint a picture that will really help us understand maybe where to devote our energies. A lot of resource constraints, a lot of physical capital constraints in terms of infrastructure, and agency challenges remain. And we do see a divide, a sort of a widening divide between sort of the higher income countries' capacities to generate a robust statistical system versus lower income ones. I just wanted to reiterate before we pivot to our next speaker, something that did come up in the chat, which is the presentation. Someone was saying, can we get a copy of the presentation? And the conveners here of the webinar have noted that it'll be available soon along with this recording, and they provided a link in the chat box. So I'd encourage you to copy that if you're interested in going through these slides in a little bit more detail at your own leisure. So with that, we're going to hear from our first country perspective as we move through the webinar today. And I'd like to introduce Miutsotis Rifas, and she has held the position of Director General of the National Statistical Office of the Dominican Republic since August 2020. She has extensive work experience in the Central American and Caribbean region in matters of regional integration, development and public policies, and public equality policies, gender mainstreaming, and trade negotiation. So please, Mirotis, over to you for 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. And also I want to, first of all, I'd like to thank the United Nations Statistics Division with Francesca to invite me to join this webinar reflections from the 2020 UN World Data Forum, the involving data ecosystem and the role of the National Statistics Office, and to share with you my point of view as a General Director of the National Statistics Office of the Dominican Republic. I also want to thank Farjal for all the support to us in this presentation. I want to please the next slide. And I want to say, like in 2020, we have two situations in the Dominican Republic. Of course, the pandemic, but at the same time, we have a new government. If you can just give it, because there is more elements here. But yes, there is, and there is a new government. So from August 2020, not just one government. There is someone with the mic open, but also there is a new party after 16 years in the government. And one of the things that they tried, that we as a government we are trying to do, is trying to align the institutional strategic plan in the old public institution of the government, but also on the public sector, but also to share and to align that with our national strategic development strategy and with our national multilateral year public sector plan that is also 65% in an alignment with the SDGs, but also in alignment with the SDG. Where we develop all this national multilateral multi-year public plan, we receive the support of the United Nations system in the Dominican Republic to conduct a COVID-19 recovery needs assessment in different areas that are prioritized for the government, as agriculture, and water, environment, tourism, gender, and others. And one of the things also that this kind of a multi-year plan prioritized was the necessity of the data to take into account a good an impact, to make decisions to impact the quality of life of the people. And next slide, please. And also all those issues are very aligned with the SDG 17 now. So what are my lessons learned from the World Data Forum, and also to try to face all the issues that we have here facing in the Dominican Republic reporting to data. I think that the COVID lift up a lot of challenges that we have as an office, but or as a country also. But I guess what the things that I learned is it is necessary a legal framework. No, here in the Dominican Republic, our legal framework is from 1959, and since we arrived to the government, we are working with our Congress in order to have a new legal framework. And this legal framework, we are supporting a lot of we are having support from IDB, from Paris 21, CEPAID, and also the United Nations here in the Dominican Republic as a new actors who are starting to work with us in this issue, and also because we are facing that it is necessary to take into account the new legal framework that the United Nations approved for Latin America in 2019. And also that what also we learned that there is now we have new sources, we have new actors, we have an ecosystem to governance, and also so we need this legal framework who deal with all those new scenarios that we have, and try to start this strategic alliance, not just with the public sector, but also with the donors, the private sector, the academic, and how we can, take into account, take advantage of all the data that are also producing outside us, because the private sectors go so faster than maybe the government can change. Next, please. So in having this into account, we also work in our national and strategic plan, and this we are facing two issues. No, the first one is to produce, coordinate, and disseminate, and as Albert said, the coordination, the leadership, is something that you need to work, and also to work with the national statistics system, but also you need the laws to support this new role that you are working, but also how to coordinate with the new ecosystem, the new actors that I said before, but also to work on strengthening the internal processes. And there is also a lot of constraint of IT infrastructure, human capacity, and also with the financial issues that all the time are very important. So we need to move forward in have this challenge to regulate our national statistic production. We needed to pass, as I said before, from a modern to a modern statistic law. We need to start to the segregation of the information by sex and territory. That is very important, that COVID-19 brings to us to the attention on how important is the segregated data, and how to build with the territories, and the government and the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Development is all the time focused on those issues, and we are trying to move with the cooperation of the different actors to that part of the plan. So also we are trying to access to new sources of data, having as a kind of alliance for that, establish the data governance, and working with the different tables. What we are working with the cooperation, we are our donors, but the UN and multilaterals and bilateral donors, but also working with the public sectors, institutions that need to produce also the data that we need us then generate statistics. So there is a big challenge how to arrange the house in order to provide better data for our government. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Sotas. That was a really, I think, inspiring presentation that really touches upon a lot of the remarks that were made by the Deputy Secretary General at the conclusion of the forum. Obviously, you're breaking new barriers, both in terms of trying to modernize laws, modernize alliances, and align things with priorities. So it's an inspiring, I think, set of messages, and a sobering set of challenges that you're making visible to us all today. So thank you for that. I've noticed there are some other comments and questions coming in on the chat box, so I'd encourage you to stay active in that. We are gathering those questions and comments, and we'll make them available and draw from them as the webinar continues. And as we continue, we will now move to our next presenter, and I'd like to produce MD Aumgar Hossain, who joined the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics in 2008 and has been working as the Deputy Director of Data Management and focal point officer for the SDGs since 2016. He has a wide experience in national census and survey operations and data management, especially in population and housing census, economic census, etc. So please, over to you. Thank you. We may be having a technical difficulty, so I'll let the coordinators intervene to see if I should just be moving on or if we want to give our Bangladeshi colleague another minute to connect.
Hi, Alamgir, I see you, but do not hear you. Yeah, the mic says that you are not muted, so we should be able to hear you. Yeah, we hear you. We see your lips moving, but yeah, we don't hear anything. Maybe we suggest to just maybe try to go back to you after Abhirash.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much. So we'll see if we can't manage that technical glitch, and we'll move ahead to our next presenter, and that's Abhirash Taraku Abe, who's worked as a statistician, team leader, and head of department for data quality standard and coordination directorate in the Ethiopia Statistical Service. She is an elected member of the ISI and member of the IAOS and IASS. She's a member of the Ethiopian Statistical Association and has worked as its vice president. So over to you, Abhirash, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to present. So the first area that I want to reflect is on the new national statistical priorities resulting from the impact of COVID-19. So next slide, please. Yeah, so I just want to touch on what the new national statistical priorities, which are resulting from the impact of COVID-19. So the major priorities and the lessons which we learned from COVID-19 are basically the first one is there is a need to increase the use of modern technology for data collection and dissemination. This includes like using copy, telephone interview, disseminate data in soft copy, provide virtual trainings. So it was difficult during COVID. We find it very difficult to use paper-based questionnaires and also face-to-face interviews. So we realized that there is a need to use modern technology, and also there is a need to provide trainings virtually. The other area which we learned is we realized that there is a need to improve electronic data transfer, and also a need to improve the network connection facilities, like by investing more on the IT infrastructure. And we also realized that there is a need to use alternative data sources like administrative data and geospatial data. We realized that it's a bit difficult to only depend on survey and census, especially in the areas like COVID-19 era. So we realized that there is a need to use alternative data sources, especially administrative data and also geospatial data. Another area which we realized is a need to produce more disaggregated and timely data. Data was requested, especially during COVID and also after COVID, to know the impact of the COVID in different group of the population. So more disaggregated data and also more timely data was required. So we need to work on that one. And statistical coordination was also another area which comes that we need to stress more on in this area after COVID. And capacity building, even before COVID, there was some areas which we need, which the national statistical offices and members of national statistical system need capacity building. But after COVID, the capacity building requirement even becomes more critical. And in addition to that, we also realized that there is a need to review the Statistics Act for better and effective coordination, and also by considering the new requirements. So these are the major areas which we realized as the new national statistical system priorities after COVID-19. So next slide. And based on these requirements, I just want to reflect on the discussions held during the third World Data Forum in relation to these requirements. So during the third World Data Forum, different sessions which reflect the new need in relation to COVID-19 were organized, and valuable discussions were also held. And based on those discussions, useful recommendations also came out of these discussions. Some of them are like sessions were organized on the mechanism to produce more disaggregated data by different characteristics. So I really appreciate those sessions, and they were very much helpful for national statistical offices to know the different mechanisms to produce more disaggregated data. And different discussions were also held during the World Data Forum on innovative methods to produce timely and quality data. And practical examples on the use of geospatial data, administrative data, and citizen-generated data was also presented, and there was also a lot of discussions on these areas. Another area which I really appreciated from the forum was the discussion on engaging users to improve coordination. And increasing sustainable financing was also boldly discussed, and the idea was raised. So the forum helped to share experience and improve partnership in statistics. And all these discussions created awareness and useful recommendations which come out on the conclusion on the Bern Data Impact for the decade of action on sustainable development goals. Next slide. And finally, I want to reflect on the statistical capacity needs and the challenges to achieve the scope and intent of the 2013 agenda. Basically, the following are major capacity needs and challenges for the national statistical offices and also national statistical system. As I said, the first one is statistical coordination in the national statistical system. We are trying our best to be better coordinated, but still coordination is a challenge in the national statistical system. And capacity building is also a challenge, and capacity building is also required since data quality is one of the challenges, especially when it comes to administrative data and other new data sources. So capacity building to maintain data quality, especially for the new data sources, is another area which we need capacity. And another one which we need capacity is mechanisms for effective data sharing. These days, since we are we need to use administrative data and other data from different data sources, there should be effective data sharing mechanism, and that is still becoming a challenge to get the data produced by different NSS members to share to other members. Another one is methodology to use and integrate different data sources. This is also one area which we need capacity building. Financial and technical capacity to use the new technologies is also the capacity required by NSOs and also other NSS members. And finally, sustainable financing for all these statistical activities, data qualities, to use different sources for IT infrastructure and related areas is very much needed. Yeah, this is what I want to reflect. Next slide. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Abhirash, for those reflections, both in terms of how your institution has responded to data demands during the pandemic, which I think was a question that was posted in the chat box just before you got started. So hopefully that colleague now has a good case study of how one converted their approach to gathering information during a very challenging and demanding time for statistical producers. That's really been a helpful set of reflections. And certainly I think when we get to the Q&A section, I think we will return to this notion of capacity buildings and which capacity building requirements, which seem to be expanding across a series of topics in a way that perhaps we didn't see in this community as little as 5 years ago, and then how to prioritize and how to gain that kind of capacity building is something worth exploring. But before we do that, we are going to return now, and we're hoping that our colleague from Bangladesh, who is now connecting through a different technical mechanism, can join us. So just as a quick reminder, we're now hopefully going to be connected to Alamgir Hossain, who's our colleague from the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. And so I'm now going to hopefully pass the mic over to our colleague in Bangladesh. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Sorry for the interruption. I cannot share the PPT right now, but I will talk of my PPT, and I hope I can share it with you later on. I will talk regarding the data ecosystem in Bangladesh and how the NSO is actually working to ensure the data availability, and what are the initiatives we have taken from the National Statistical Office in Bangladesh. I will share those one. Before going to the detailed talk, I will share one thing that in Bangladesh we have a strong legislative background of official statistics here. We have Statistics Act 2013, and according to the act, the government is mandated, and it is a mandatory for the government offices to use the official statistics for all government activities or statistical activities for planning and monitoring and evaluation for all agendas, including the SDGs and even the national agendas. It is interesting that according to the Statistics Act, the official statistics is defined those statistics which are actually produced by the National Statistics Office, that is Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. But for few cases where BBS is not responding or not generating data, the other agencies from the government can also produce official statistics subject to prior permission from the National Statistics Office. If any other statistics which is derived from the National Statistical System and used for the national or international planning or reporting, the BBS, that is the National Statistics Office, has been given the responsibility to authenticate the data according to the Statistics Act 2013. Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics is playing the key role in monitoring the data ecosystem in Bangladesh for the SDGs, particularly through the online platform that is SDG Tracker. Our Honorable Prime Minister has unveiled the SDG tracker system in UNGA in 2017 September. And Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics is actually responsible to manage this online platform and connect all the national statistical system, even the intervention ministries and agencies through this online platform. The main role of National Statistics Office in Bangladesh regarding the data is BBS itself providing 105 indicators, global indicators data for the National Statistical System for monitoring the SDGs. And also BBS is authenticating the other official statistics that is generated from the National Statistical System in Bangladesh. Besides this, Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics is conducting different capacity building workshops, trainings with the support from the government, from the UNSD and other UN mechanism. Currently, Bangladesh is also implementing the data for now initiatives with the support from UNDESA, followed by the UNSD FCDO project. We have already started we have taken different initiatives to make available and updated data in Bangladesh. Right now, we could make available only 176 global indicators data from the National Statistical System. But our target is to fill up the gap, at least ensuring the availability of at least baseline data for at least 200 global indicators from the National Statistical System by this year. And last week, we have conducted a 4-day long meeting and workshop with the support from UNSD FCDO project. And we have identified what are the gaps between the National Statistical System and the SDG data availability. And we hope we can ensure the availability of data at least for the 200 indicators for the global indicators. In Bangladesh, actually, for the capacity building of the National Statistical System for SDGs, we have identified aligning with the international tier classification of the SDG indicators. We have also identified the local tier classifications that is known as the group. And we have identified that from our National Statistical System, currently we are able to generate 131 indicators regularly. And we have taken different initiatives to make available data for 63 global indicators. And still now, Bangladesh is facing a big challenge for 52 global indicators to ensure data generation for the National Statistical System due to the lack of capacity related to soft and hard both. So National Statistical Office is actually working from to coordinate all the National Statistical System so that all the National Statistical System can develop their own capacity. And from the NSO, we are providing different technical support and building partnerships with the other agencies so that we can ensure the full generation of all the SDG indicators data from the global indicators, which has been adopted in the National Monitoring and Evaluation Framework. If you see the data availability in Bangladesh, our main data gap is found for the disaster, climate change, and consumption related data that is especially focused on the goal 11 to 15. So we need the capacity for this particular area, especially though we have some other required capacity gap we have identified regarding the gender data, and also we have found some gap for the SDG 16 data to ensure the regular monitoring and evaluation of SDGs in Bangladesh. with alignment with the national plan, that is H5F plan, which is being implementing during 2021 to 2025. As part of the international global monitoring of the SDGs, Bangladesh has identified 39 indicators as local priority of Bangladesh, and also each of the district and upazila sub-district has identified for themselves one priority areas for along with the global and national priority, so that to ensure the leave no one behind. And we are involving the local communities, the local representatives from the local government, also the government mechanisms, so that all can work together. Right now, Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics has taken different initiatives to ensure data, but due to the COVID-19, we have faced some challenges because of data collection. We could not conduct our pre-scheduled population and housing census 2021, and hope we have to shift these census next year, in the beginning of the next year. But still, we are worried about the new challenge of new type of virus, COVID virus, and we are still uh, facing some challenges to conduct the population housing census in the near 2 or 3 months, during the near 2 or 3 months. Uh, at that point, we are actually focusing for the administrative data. So our more focus will be to ensure that to ensure the quality of the administrative data, and how we can ensure that the other different approaches like big data through AI or IoT can introduced for generating data for particular indicators, which is very crucial for us, like the poverty indicators, the employment indicators, like this. So our main focus is actually for capacity building through the different innovative approaches of data generation. Right now, through the Data for Now initiative, we are getting build our capacity to in respect of these particular methodologies. From the head of the government, we are getting full support to strengthen the capacity of the national statistical system, especially for the SDGs. Recently, Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics has published a very iconic document, that is a very iconic publication, that is known as Action Plan and the methodological guideline towards data generation and disaggregation for monitoring and evaluation of SDGs. And we have identified in this document a clear data calendar for the national statistical system, as well as the customized version of the data disaggregation for each of the SDG global indicators. The National Statistical System is currently working based on the document published by the National Statistics Office, and we are trying our best to ensure to achieve the final target, so that we can ensure the evaluation and monitoring of our SDGs, which has been hampered through the COVID-19 situation. So right now, actually, we are working to ensure the data to ensure the data from the administrative sources, as well as we are going for the different approaches for telephonic interview, using the mobile data, using the other approaches, so that the data can be ensured for the monitoring of SDGs in Bangladesh. And we hope the progress is very satisfactory in this regard, and in near future, Bangladesh will be able to report from the National Statistical System regularly. For this purpose, we have identified 127 indicators which can be able to reported annually, and 88 indicators will be reported regularly from the National Statistical System triennially, and only 21 and 10 indicators 5-yearly and biennially regularly, respectively. That's all from me. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. Thank you for hearing with patience.
Great. Well, I think we're all delighted that you were able to find a way to connect. And I think you painted a very interesting picture of the experiences and the demands that are changing on the Bangladeshi Statistical Office. So we're really delighted you were able to tune in and participate. We've got around 19 minutes to go in this session, and so I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to pretty much ask each of the country level participants sort of maybe 2 questions and give them a bit of time to go through them. We'll go through them in sequence, and I'm going to hope that they can maybe respond quite quickly. Keep it under 2 minutes, I think, for each of these questions, please. But I think there's been a lot of interest in the chat, and I think this has come out in each of the 3 presentations around sort of the challenges of addressing the data requirements that occurred during the COVID pandemic. Obviously, data demands went up. We heard from some colleagues about the need for more current data. We also heard the challenges of sort of changing production and data gathering processes during that time because of some of the constraints that countries were facing. So maybe just one quick question that I think would resonate with the audience is, from each of you, sort of what are you most proud of in terms of what you were able to do through that very difficult time? Is there something in particular that when you reflect on how you tried to transition to providing this new type of data or having to do things in new ways, is there something that you reflect on that you're particularly proud of and what your institution did? So that's question 1. And if you can keep your response to a minute or a minute and a half, that would be great. Let's start with, we'll go in the same order that we did the presentation. So we'll start with the Dominican Republic, please.
Thanks, Grant. I think the one things I'm proud of is to help people, help the institution to find a way to work with data and take decisions. Now, to plan, for example, we are now having a work with our planning minister and trying to how all the plans we can find all the data that we have in the Dominican Republic that we are producing, how to take this data to make decisions, to design projects, and also to evaluate and make assessment to all the public policies. So that was a thing that I'm proud that I can, because all the time you saw the people that said we don't have data. We have data, but we don't know how to explore the data. So we are doing that on this issue, trying to support different institutions to try to find the right data for the right policies that they want to conduct.
Great answer. Thanks very much. Let's turn to Ethiopia now and find out what they're most proud of, please.
Okay, thank you. So during this time, we have done so many things to overcome the challenges which we face. One of the things is we tried to revise our Statistics Act with the support from UNWDF. And while we are revising that act, we tried to incorporate the challenges which we face in terms of coordination and other related statistical related issues. So we are proud that we managed to revise our act, and we are in the final stage. The other one is we also moved most of our surveys to electronic data collection and tried to avoid paper-based data collection. And the other one is we created a coordination structure so that we involve different stakeholders to be more coordinated and to discuss frequently. We also prepared a user engagement strategy, which helps us to engage more users permanently. And we also prepared a dissemination platform with the support from UNWDF project, the Africa Information Highway, where we can disseminate our data to be more usable. And finally, we also developed our NSDs to be implemented in the coming 5 years. And while we are developing the National Strategy for Development of Statistics, we try to incorporate the SDG into and the national. We try to consider the SDG and also the Agenda 2063 and the country development plan to our NSDs, and also we take into account the challenges which we face and the mechanisms to overcome those challenges. So we are proud that we did these things.
Great, thank you very much. And it's great to hear sort of the positive messages and stories coming out of these interventions so far, that there were some great successes achieved during a very challenging time. Again, very briefly, I'll turn to our colleague from Bangladesh. Very quickly, can you articulate what you're most proud of? Thanks.
Thank you. The very interesting thing is that to ensure the data in the national statistical system, and we have got a good opportunity to participate in the UNWDF this year, and we could share our difficulties with the different countries, the different partners, and we have identified that what are the experiences and how they are getting out of these, especially from the pandemic effect, and what are the approaches they are actually going for to ensure the data availability for SDG monitoring. So learning from the UNWDF, we have identified that we have new horizon to work on it, and especially we are now discussing how data, following the fundamental principles of official statistics, how Bangladesh can ensure to think about the big data as and ensure it through the legal system, the legislative system, that the data generated from the other approaches beyond the conventional surveillance censuses can be taken as the official statistics, are treated as the official statistics. This is one of our mission now, and Secretary of Statistics and Informatics Division, who is also the chair of the National Data Coordination Committee in Bangladesh, she has already identified we have to work a lot to ensure the coordination among the agencies who are generating a lot of data, non-conventional data, and generate that, and we can use those opportunity to ensure the data availability in Bangladesh. So our main challenge is not only the capacity building in the statistical point of view, but also we are thinking of preparing or developing new human resources for the as the data analytics, and we are thinking of adapting our new strategies so that through the national strategy for the development of statistics, which are being closed by the 2023, and renewing it up to the 2023 for the next round of the NSDS in Bangladesh, and thinking of it, and we hope all the challenges will be covered under this new NSDS in Bangladesh. That's all from me. Thank you.
Great. That's a lot. So thank you so much. And another very positive set of stories. I think the last quick question I'm going to ask before we start wrapping up, and before I ask this question, I just want to reflect what's going on again in the chat box. There's been an awful lot of very positive comments to the presentations that we've heard today. So I just want to pass those greetings and thanks on to our presenters, because I think a lot of what you've discussed and described is really resonating with the audience today. So thanks on behalf of the folks who've been posting in the chat on that. I think when I want to finish with one final round of short questions, and I think this is the challenge of capacity building. I think we know that we've heard, for those of us who attended the Bern Forum There was a couple of main sessions developing on how capacity building needs to change. And I'm just wondering, given where your particular institution is on its kind of modernization journey, and there's so many facets that need to be addressed, from improving the enabling environment for statistical laws, for data sharing, for generating more agency in the organization to do a better job of coordinating across the ecosystem, the requirements for new types of skills and technology. If you were to think about your organization for, say, over the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years, could you identify perhaps 2 of the most pressing needs for capacity improvement? Are there 2? And maybe they don't. Maybe there isn't one. But are you thinking about the prioritization? Do some things worry you more than others across this array of, potential ways to improve, to become more relevant and visible in your society? So does anything kind of leap to the front of your mind in terms of things that keep you up at night? And again, I think we'll go through the same order. So we'll start with Dominican Republic for her reflections. Thanks.
Thank you, Grant. I think, and that's what I'm challenged right now, is because you are facing a new kind of also like job that you have to do with other institutions. For me, leadership is very important, because we have a lot of good technicals in our offices, but at the same time they are more focused on the technical issues, and you need now a new ecosystem that you have to deal, you have to coordinate, you have to articulate with the different institutions, you have also to to move forward a lot of plans. And that is never said to change your mind, that's to change your mindset. Now you are not just a technical people that are working with statistics, algorithm models, but also you are someone who have to move forward, and try to get in together a different institution, different kind of view. So for me, leadership is one of the issues, and we are working on that, and here in the Dominican Republic with part of our team. And the second one, maybe I want to share also, is how you can start. And it was the first that I did when I arrived to the position. I take courses about big data, business intelligence, and business analysis. But because I want to know how all those new ecosystem is going to impact my my work, on my management on this office, and trying to how to I'm going to move forward this institution, and how to take to the Dominican Republic to the next level. So that is now that you also in terms of capacity, because also this open your mind. So you need to lose the fear to the new things that are going around, and that is important. We need to change our mindset. The organizational culture is very important, and maybe we don't know. We think that that is not important, but it is important, because data is changing. Data is playing another role in this century, and we need to face that and work to that, and be happy for that. So that's my reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. Quickly to Ethiopia, we heard from Dominican Republic, sort of cultural change, managerial challenges are at the fore. How about in your country's circumstance?
Yeah, basically, we just want to get support, like technical and financial support, basically to implement our NSDs. The national plan. So we put most of our challenges and our needs there. So I think partners and the countries and also our other support, we expect support on technical and financial support to implement the NSDs, which includes like methodological support, especially for the new SDG indicators, which are a bit challenging for developing countries to produce. Coordination and partnership just to produce those data, and also to produce more data now, more disaggregated data, as I said. So we have been producing the data at higher level, but now geographically disaggregated data and by different characteristics. So basically the quality, also how to improve. We want to use the new data sources. We don't want to depend only on survey and census, but we want to use like administrative data sources, data from civil societies, data from geospatial data, and so on and so forth. So a mechanism to integrate this by maintaining their quality and also by adhering to the fundamental principles. So we need support on these areas.
Great, thanks very much. And for our Bangladeshi colleague, I guess, how about, can you sum things up in 1 minute? Maybe give us your most pressing capacity need at this stage, very quickly.
Thank you. I would like to focus especially on the data sharing issues in Bangladesh. Our main challenge is ensuring the interoperability. You'll be happy to know that we are in working process to ensure the adapting the SDMX in our national statistical system for SDGs, and all the data focal points from the national statistical system has been they have been changed up by UNSD recent time, and we are working on to ensure the SDMX in our national portal of SDGs. We hope when the whole system will be available, so the sharing of the data for the SDGs will be not a big challenge for us. We are also working to ensure the availability of data publicly, especially for the microdata. The government has opened an OGD platform, and all the government data, particularly all the reports and all the microdata, the portal regularly, and the National Statistical Office is regularly sharing the data officially, and in the website we are publishing all the reports regularly, and from the particular
So maybe I'll just ask our colleague to stop there. He's kind of flipping in and out technologically, so it gives me an opportunity with the 2 minutes we have left to wrap up our session. So as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I'd like to thank everyone who was the organizers for putting this session together. This is our colleagues at the UN Stats Division. I'd like to thank, obviously, all of our presenters today. A terrific set of perspectives and views. And I think if I was asked to sum up sort of what we have covered in today's session, I think maybe 3 things come to mind, and I will be very brief. Thing one is that I think it's very clear that the messages have resonated from the Bern World Data Forum, have really have found their way into basically the working operations and the strategy setting in the various from the statistical offices that we've heard today. Those are legitimate and necessary calls to action that I think we're seeing implementation on in these case studies. The second thing that I think is important to iterate is that everyone has some pride, and I think has found a way to feel more relevant through COVID as a statistical system, in the way in which all offices have made an effort to respond to new data requirements under very different and difficult production process settings. So congratulations to all there. And I think in terms of the capacity building stories that have come out, obviously the demands on statistical systems, because of the changing nature of the data ecosystem, both in terms of the user requirements as well as the potential for different data sources to be used to inform decision making, are changing so rapidly that we do find that there's each of the statistical offices discussed today really highlighted different challenges that they're facing over the next couple of years. You know, we heard that Ethiopia is looking for methodological and financial support. Dominican Republic, for example, a little bit more on cultural change and ways to sort of influence across boundaries to be more of a strengthened voice in their respective data ecosystems. So I think it's been a fantastic set of presentations and discussion. I think I'm echoing what has been said in the chat. So I think I'm going to say thanks. I don't know if I have to hand this back to someone at UNDF, the UN Stats Department, to sign us off. But I would just like to thank our presenters, and I look forward to the next webinar in this series. So thank you very much, and thanks for all of you for tuning in for the hour and 15-minute set of presentations. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Wonderful presentations to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.